So let's first, Bob, talk about the latest update that you can give the residents of Port Hope on COVID-19 and how it affects the municipality of Port Hope.
Well, there's quite a bit going on, as you know. These are very unusual times. And certainly I think it is difficult for families, and we acknowledge that and recognize this distance requirement, that the self-isolation. But I can tell you that our community seems to be rallying around that very well, and accepting the responsibility that all of us have to take. With respect to some thanks are due, I think, to our first responders, our police, our fire department, and certainly all the front row health care professionals that are working diligently. And we should include those as well, all the essential services. We have people out there looking after us and technically putting themselves in more harm's way than perhaps they would choose to. So these people all, I think, need to be acknowledged and thanked for all their efforts.
When you talk about frontline professionals in your municipality of Port Hope, how are they currently dealing with the COVID-19? Has there been any trepidation of them responding to any calls whatsoever, or have measures been put in place to protect their safety?
Measures have been put in place for sure, and I think that any municipality, including ours, are following all the health recommendations through both federal, but certainly heavily from a provincial perspective. And in many cases, I think we're actually ahead of the curve. I've had no reports of any hesitation to look after anybody who's in any sort of trouble at all.
Now, we're starting to see municipalities around not only this Northumberland County, but also across the province putting in measures, tax deferrals for residents and such as that. What's your municipality currently doing for the residents?
We're doing the same thing. We've taken away penalties, so they're deferred at this point in time. Certainly, the deadlines, any deadlines for tax payments and other requirements, those deadlines have been pushed back at this point in time, undefined and indefinitely. But there will come a time when it will occur. So I think from the perspective of trying to assist, our transit system is on the go. We know people still need to get around. All the precautions for the drivers are in place, the disinfectant. All our municipal buildings are closed. But I do want to say that most of our staff are certainly on duty, including your council and myself. There is a lot of contactability, but unfortunately you can't go into any municipal building at this point in time. And we just also recently closed our playgrounds equipment. So it steps up. I think we're ahead of the curve in many ways, and certainly being very aggressive. Our teams of directors are discussing and meeting several times every day through long distance requirements. But we're staying ahead of it, and our fire chief is, I think, taking a very strong leadership role, both in our community and with the other communities.
For residents in the municipality of Port Hope that are doing or needing assistance, obviously you just stated that all the buildings are physically closed. What can you tell them as to how they can access information, or if they're needed of assistance through either Public Works or any of the municipality under that realm?
Yeah, good question. All our availability is still for people. So phoning in municipal offices, the phones are still working and being manned, just being managed through technology. And also admin at porthope.ca is a response as well. And I'd encourage everybody to look at our website. We have continual and constant updates there as well. So there's constant availability. Services definitely are diminished, but all essential services are available.
Obviously, in a community such as yours and many, the effect on small businesses, what do you say to those businesses that have had to close the door and are looking for some help?
Well, again, I think we're trying to coordinate both with provincial responses, and we've been in constant touch with the Chamber, who is, again, in touch with all the business owners. And the deferral of requirements, bills, et cetera, I think are going to help in the short term. But I think we need to regroup once the crisis is over to see how we can sustain and maintain our business community. There's going to be permanent changes for many levels of society, I think.
To give the residents an update on the status of the current council and how the municipality is being ran, could you give us an update on that as well?
Yeah, as you know, probably the provincial government has allowed councils and elected officials to communicate and meet in a quorum through technical long distance touching base. So we can call a council. It's now at the choice of the chair, which would be myself. Anytime we should need to have a council meeting per se, we will be able to have one. The first council meeting we'll have from our perspective would be to ensure that we instill these changes within our own procedures and protocols. And that would also be the ability to vote. We do need to be able to move the business forward. The biggest concern we probably have, quite frankly, is that we need to make sure that the public, is still engaged. We still have transparency, and that we don't take, in any way steps that the public would see as, taking advantage of a situation. But business still needs to move on, and your council can continue to meet with a quorum, but doing it, as I say, through distancing each other and from home if needed.
With many items on the agenda that this council is currently dealing with, will they now be put on the back burner to deal with that has to be dealt with COVID-19? Obviously, just 3 weeks ago, you had a major public meeting on Penryn Village and what is happening there. What can you assure the residents of Port Hope on that, on those issues? Not only that, but all municipal business that was currently being worked on.
Well, we did have that meeting so that many of the sort of requirements right now and the tenders that could go out are done, whether they be for public works. So I don't see any delay there, other than if construction itself or contractors are delayed. We'll just have to deal with that. On the more sensitive issues, we obviously cannot have public meetings at this point in time. So anything that requires a public meeting, such as the Penryn Woodlot, will be deferred until such time as we can get back to some sort of normalcy. Behind the scenes, though, we're still going to be working, on the processes, making sure the information we have is available, ready to go. Very recently, LPAT has shut its doors also. So any appeals and any processes that LPAT was going to be having is also delayed. No question it'll be fairly disruptive for certain developments, but all essential services and all requirements are being met.
One final word to you, Bob, to the residents of Port Hope during this time.
Well, I think the main thing I would like to say is that this is a time to be compassionate to each other, kind to each other, look after those in need, but recognizing all the social requirements and distance requirements from people. But thanks to everybody. It's an amazing process to go through, and I think it definitely tests the strength of a municipality, and I quite frankly think we're coming through very loud and clear. Might ask the fishermen to just separate a little bit down by the river. We've had some comments about that.
That was one issue I was going to bring up that I forgot about. I know that the trout isn't as much of a run as the salmon is, and with their groups, has there been any talk with any ministry officials to ban that, or can you ban that, or is that in your realm to ban that currently?
No, Mark, I don't think it's really high on the priority list. I think our priority is really to try to make sure that fishermen who come into the community, recognize that they should distance themselves on the shores, because they do have a tendency to, congregate. And as time goes by, Mark, I think that's going to be more of a challenge. Initially, it's maybe not so hard. Families are at home. How are they shopping? The elderly. As time goes by, these rules have to be maintained, and human nature would say it's very tempting sometimes. Well, I'll just break the rules a little bit, but we really can't do that, and we'll be supporting people as much as we can, to encourage them to motor through this together, and as I say, with compassion and kindness.